Hi out there. Welcome. Poets, can I get a thumbs up that you can hear me okay? Okay, perfect. I like to check. That would be terrible if I was just speaking without being able to be heard. So I'm Laura Bucheri. I am the Director of Publicity at Copper Canyon Press. And I am coming to you live from California, where I came 3 weeks ago thinking I would go back to New York in 2 days, but I've been here sheltering with my family. So welcome to my childhood home. Thank you for joining us. So we're getting ready for a live book launch reading with Ellen Bass, Mark Bibbins, and MONICA Sook. And they're going to read from their gorgeous new books, Indigo, 13th Balloon, and A Nail the Evening Hangs On. So if those of you watching out there have questions for the poets, you can look for the Q&A feature on Zoom and enter a question. So we'll get to those at the end if we have time. If it would help you to see closed captioning, we'll be attempting to live caption this reading. You'll just need to enable closed captioning, the closed captioning feature on your Zoom window under the More section. And if you're joining us via the simultaneous live stream on our Facebook page, welcome. And thank you so much for tuning in. Comments or questions on our Facebook feed won't get to us directly here in Zoom, but we'll be doing our best to keep an eye on Facebook at the same time. So this is our first time hosting a reading on Zoom. So thank you so much for joining us in this experiment. It's exciting. So as you probably know, Copper Canyon is a nonprofit independent book publisher that's been entirely dedicated to poetry for almost 50 years. And this is a series of live stream readings. It's a way for us to stay connected with all of you in this era of, social distancing. And we're launching these beautiful new books since we weren't able to attend AWP. Our authors have had to cancel book tours and other events, and most of the beloved bookstores you all love to shop at have had to close their doors to the public. So we're hoping that this provides kind of a space just for connection and for sharing work. So speaking of bookstores, if you fall in love with any of these poets' work, and we really hope you do, and you have the means, we encourage you to purchase or pre-order their books from an independent bookseller to support them during this crisis. We love our friends and neighbors at Open Books and the Elliott Bay Book Company. Both are still fulfilling online orders, so we hope you'll check both those out. California friends, Ellen Bass has recommended Bookshop Santa Cruz, bookshopsantacruz.com. It's also open for phone and online orders, which is really, really great. MONICA Sook recommends Green Apple Books in San Francisco. It's just greenapplebooks.com. It's also open for online orders. And New York friends, Mark has suggested McNally Jackson, which lo and behold is mcnallyjackson.com. And that is also open for online orders. So those are three great places to find these three great books. So we're going to present 4 of these live stream readings in total. So do check out another website, coppercanyonpress.org, not com, or social media pages to find all the details for the rest of our series. They're happening each week in April. So welcome to those of you just joining this Copper Canyon Press Party live stream. I know I see some of you just got here, so that's great. So I guess without further ado, I will stop talking because everybody did not sign in to hear me speak. And I will introduce our first reader, Ellen Bass. She's reading from her brand new poetry collection, which was just published this week, Indigo. And side note, if you get the New York Times, it will be reviewed in this Sunday's book review in the new and noteworthy section, which is great. Ellen is also the author of Like a Beggar and The Human Line, co-author of the groundbreaking book, The Courage to Heal, and co-editor of the anthology No More Masks. Last year, hundreds of donors came together to help raise funds on Kickstarter in support of this book. So thank you so much to those donors. And Ellen, I'm going to stop talking and I'm going to pass it to you.
Thank you so much, Laura. And thank you all for being here. It is such a good feeling to know that you're there and we're together. Poetry is what we turn to in really, really tough times, and these are certainly tough times. We know that it helps us transmute, translate, transform our suffering into beauty and make meaning out of chaos. I'm thrilled to be reading with Monica and Mark. I can't wait to hear you read your poems. And I just want to underline Laura's public service announcement about buying books. She said if you fall in love with any of these books, please buy them, but it's okay with me if you just like my book. You don't have to fall in love with it. Just, you know, just like it a little and buy it would be just great. Thank you so much, because Copper Canyon needs it. These bookstores need it. We have to keep our publishers of poetry and our bookstores going in this tough time. I want to start by reading the epigraph to my book. It's by Robert Penn Warren. He says, "Tell me a story. In this century and moment of mania, tell me a story. Make it a story of great distances and starlight. The name of the story will be time, but you must not pronounce its name." This first poem is called The Small Country. Unique, I think, is the Scottish tartle, that hesitation when introducing someone whose name you've forgotten. And what could capture cafuné, the Brazilian Portuguese way to say, running your fingers tenderly through someone's hair? Is there a term in any tongue for choosing to be happy? And where is speech for the block of ice we pack in the sawdust of our hearts? What appellation approaches the smell of apricots thickening the air when you boil jam in early summer? What words reach the way I touched you last night, as though I had never known a woman, an explorer, wholly curious to discover each particular fold and hollow, without guide, not even the mirror of my own body. Last night, you told me you liked my eyebrows. You said you never really noticed them before. What is the word that fuses this freshness with the pity of having missed it? And how even touch itself cannot mean the same to both of us, even in this small country of our bed, even in this language with only 2 native speakers. Even though I can't hear you, I know you're just applauding wildly, so thank you. The orange and white high-heeled shoes. Today, I'm thinking about those shoes. White with a tangerine stripe across the toe and forceful orange heels that fit both my mother and me. We used to shop like that, trying them on side by side. That was when there still was a man who would cradle your heel in his palm and guide your foot. Sometimes he would think he made a sale, only to have one of us turn to the other, and he would have to kneel again, hoping to ease another naked soul into the bed of suede or leather. I thought those shoes were just the peak of chic. And my God, she bought me a pair of orange cotton gloves to complete the ensemble. Why is there such keen pleasure in remembering? You are dead 10 years, and these showy slippers, we wore them more than half a century ago. The first boy had not yet misted my breasts with his breath, and you were strong as a muscled goddess, gliding nylons over your calves, lifting your amplitude into a breastplate. Who will remember these pumpkin-colored pumps when I die too? Who will remember how we slid into them, like girls diving into a cedar-tinged lake, like bees entering the trumpet of a flower, like birds disappearing into the green, green leaves of summer? Next, I'm going to read the title poem of the book. I'll show you the book. You have a good, isn't he gorgeous? Indigo. As I'm walking on West Cliff Drive, a man runs toward me, pushing one of those jogging strollers with shock absorbers so the baby can keep sleeping, which this baby is. I can just get a glimpse of its almost translucent eyelids. The father is young, a jungle of indigo and carnelian, tattooed from knuckle to jaw, leafy vines and blossoms, saints and symbols. Thick wooden plugs pierce his lobes, and his sunglasses testify to the radiance haloed around him. I am so jealous, as I often am. It's a kind of obsession. I want him to have been my child's father. I want to have married a man who wanted to be in a body, who wanted to live in it so much that he marked it up like a book, underlining, highlighting, writing in the margins, I was here. Not like my dead ex-husband, who was always fighting against the flesh, who sat for hours on his zafu chanting Om, and then went out and broke his hand punching the car. I imagine when this galloping man gets home, he's going to want to have sex with his wife, who slept in late, and then he'll eat barbecued ribs and let the baby teeth on a bone while he drinks a dark beer. I can't stop wishing my daughter had had a father like that. I can't stop wishing I'd had that life. Oh, I know it's a miracle to have a life, any life at all. It took 8 years for my parents to conceive me. First there was the war, and then just waiting. And my mother's bones so narrow, she had to be slit and I airlifted. That anyone is born, each precarious success from sperm and egg to zygote, embryo, infant, is a wonder. And here I am alive, almost 70 years, and nothing has killed me. Not the car I totaled running a stop sign, or the spirochete that screwed into my blood. Not the tree that fell in the forest exactly where I was standing, my best friend shoving me backward so I fell on my ass as it crashed. I'm alive, and I gave birth to a child. So she didn't get a father who'd sling her onto his shoulder, and so much else she didn't get. I've cried most of my life over that. And now there's everything that we can't talk about. We love but cannot take too much of each other. Yet she is the one who, when I asked her to kill me if I no longer had my mind, we were on our way into Ross shopping for dresses. That's something she likes, and they all look adorable on her. She's the only one who didn't hesitate or refuse or waver or flinch. As we strode across the parking lot, she said, "Okay, but when's the cutoff? That's what I need to know." And I'll finish with this poem, which is more pertinent to our time than I knew when I wrote it. Any common desolation can be enough to make you look up at the yellowed leaves of the apple tree, the few that survived the rains and frost, shot with late afternoon sun. They glow a deep orange gold against a blue so sheer, a single bird would rip it like silk. You may have to break your heart, but it isn't nothing to know even one moment alive. The sound of an oar in an oarlock or a ruminant animal tearing grass. The smell of grated ginger, the ruby neon of the liquor store sign, warm socks. You remember your mother, her precision a ceremony, as she gathered the white cotton, slipped it over your toes, drew up the heel, turned the cuff. A breath can uncoil as you walk across your own muddy yard, the Big Dipper pouring night down over you, and everything you dread, all you can't bear, dissolves, and, like a needle slipped into your vein, that sudden rush of the world. Thank you.
Ellen, thank you so much. That was beautiful. And thank you for being our first person to read into the Zoom atmosphere. So I appreciate that. And I do have to say, I was looking at the Q&As at between poems when you were reading, and I do want you to know people wrote in wild applause. Ellen, you're right. We were applauding wildly. I could listen to Ellen forever. These are what people are saying. So
you sweethearts, all of you. Thank you.
Correct. So thank you so much. Let's see. We're going in alphabetical order. So I'm gonna go right into Mark Bibbins, who is our next reader into the Zoom. I don't know, can we make that a noun, into the Zoom? I'm gonna go for it. So our next reader is Mark Bibbins, whose new book, 13th Balloon, was named by O Magazine as one of the most important LGBTQ books to read in 2020. His other books include They Don't Kill You Because They're Hungry, They Kill You Because They're Full, and Dance of No Hard Feelings. He lives and teaches in New York City, and he was actually my professor. So I have known Mark for a while now and really love his work dearly. So I'm excited to hear you read, Mark. I will turn it over to you. I have nothing else to say.
Perfect. Thank you, Laura. And thank you so much to Copper Canyon for literally everything, and to all of you for listening in today and watching if you're seeing us. So I am reading from 13th Balloon. It's mostly an elegy for someone who died of AIDS, also named Mark, in the early 90s. And it's a single poem. I'll sort of pause between sections. And inspired by Ellen, I'm going to read the epigraph as well, which is from Gertrude Stein. Why is there so much useless suffering? Why is there? A few months after you died, I came home on a black and freezing night to find a small cardboard box on the steps outside my building. I opened the lid, and inside was a single newborn animal, hairless, pink and clean, a rat, a guinea pig, I couldn't tell. Was it moving? I don't remember now. Why can't I remember that now? It can't have been moving. It couldn't have been alive. I considered my cat asleep in my apartment. Would he kill this creature if it lived? Did I have any milk? And how would I get any milk anyway inside this tiny thing that surely could not be alive? What kind of person might have come and left a baby, possibly dead animal there in a box on my stoop? What kind? If this was a test, I failed it. I carried the box 3 long blocks to the river and threw it in. I have never so much as in the moment the box went under the surface of the water, stabbing and stabbing and stabbing itself with the moon's million obsidian knives, wished that I were dead. If death is a test, I fail. If death is a test, I pass. You and I never called each other by the name we shared. It would have been like eating an echo, each of us checking opposite sides of a two-way mirror for fog left by his own breath. Months after you died, I saw someone in a nightclub in a different city than the ones in which our story crossed itself out. Someone who knew us both, but as it turned out, not very well. He looked shocked to see me, a look I didn't need him to explain, but holy shit, he said, I thought you were dead. We celebrated my not death with shots of something too sweet, and an hour later I was vomiting into a mop bucket in the corner of the club. The coelacanth was believed to be extinct for millions of years until the sea coughed one up off the coast of South Africa after a great storm. Its name comes from the Greek, kilios, meaning hollow. From here, I can see a fountain and a statue of a president against a backdrop of not yet spectacular oaks and maples, rows of your friends in white folding chairs. Whatever flowers would still have been thriving in the park in the middle of September, I'm sure we were grateful for. When it was my turn to speak at your memorial, what did I say? A version of, you aren't really dead, or see you again, some useless thing any other death-struck boy, lightly educated at state and city schools might have said. Had I the gift of song, I might have sung, as another friend sang, an optimistic Irish song. After we collected the chairs to take back to the restaurant from which we borrowed them and where you used to work, we turned off the microphone and wheeled the podium away. Is there any song? And if there is, what is the name of the song that goes, now I am your widow who never was your bride? Imagine a bird who lays her eggs, then picks it up and flies without landing until it hatches. Imagine 1,000 of these birds chopping away at the soggy light. Since you died, 1,000 birds have daily flown through me, each leaving behind an egg, some of which rotted, some of which hatched, releasing more birds that pecked at my skull. Not generating the noise and pain one might expect. It's more like hearing someone typing an endless suicide note in a room at the end of a carpeted hall. Always one egg remains in me intact, and each time I yank it out, each time I crack it and crush it and throw away the shell, it reappears whole. I pull it out and pull it out, I break it 1,000 times, but nothing is ever inside. I carry it and carry it, I do not land. When I was a teenager, I smugly told one of my teachers I wasn't worried about going to hell because all my friends would be there too. And she just as smugly responded, yes, but you won't recognize them. Now when I ride the escalator to hell, I have to kiss everyone on it, even the drug lobbyists. But we're all fine now, very wealthy down here. Drop a kiss on the floor of hell, the 3-second rule applies. I may not care who I'm kissing anymore, but neither do they. Hell is full of delicious flowers, and we keep scooping out deeper hells for their decapitated stems. How cold could I have been to have said that this is the way Salon ends, Salon ends, Salon ends, not with a bang, but a river. Wolf too. I mean, wind any creature tight enough, pull any creature loose enough. It does what it has to do. Still, the flowers, I can hear them, are singing, "Don't leave. You haven't finished eating us yet." It's halfway through October 2017, and today New York woke up finally to what feels like it could be fall, and the news that a school district in Mississippi is banning To Kill a Mockingbird again. And nobody, because white people are quadrupling down so spectacularly on their bullshit this year, is surprised. Last week, I quoted someone out of context about irony, and in doing so, probably made myself some extra enemies. Later, my friend mentioned tenor and vehicle, the two components of metaphor, but it's no use. I can never remember which is which. I'm afraid I don't respond to stimuli in the way I'm supposed to. I tried looking up the size of a blue whale's heart, and it turns out, no, it's not as big as a small car after all. But the National Geographic website reassures everyone that it's still pretty big and that the blue whale's heart needs a better metaphor. The website asks, how big is your own heart? When we find out that the president has made a joke about the vice president wanting to hang all the gays, our hearts are not surprised. Nor is it exactly surprise I read in the Apostle Thomas's face, where Caravaggio has painted him slipping, with Jesus's help, one finger into the hole in Jesus's side, a hole that resembles other things that also are holes. We're told it's doubt that drives Thomas, and perhaps that's close enough. It looks like he's about to stroke the human heart of Jesus, but for the fact that the hole is on the wrong side. When David Markson died, all of his books, with his annotations in the margins, were boxed up and sent to his favorite bookstore, where the staff released them into the wilds of the shelves. Don Quixote, Don DeLillo, Heidegger, and Wretched Old Pound. Word went out in the ways in which it does now, and a kind of scavenger hunt began. Markson's books began drifting off like leaves on 100 breezes to land in 100 strangers' libraries, his marginalia becoming an untethered archive, an elegy both fracturing and perpetuating itself. Borges could have written the story of this story, in which a writer dies and his books are bought by strangers and taken away. Then, decades later, after the last stranger dies, word goes out again in the ways in which it will, and all the books come back together. All the books come back. Thanks.
Thanks, Mark. I like your paintings behind you as well. They're very pretty. I was in the comments as well, or in the Q&As as well when you were reading. And I have to say, I love all of you guys, all of the poets, but also all the people who are writing and are just writing the most beautiful, beautiful things about your poems. Mark, somebody said, Mark, enormously grateful to hear you read these poems. Somebody else said, I love the rhythm of your lines. Somebody else said, not a question, but oh my God, your poems are amazing. So I just have to say, yeah, I'm glad that's not a question, yes. So thank you, Mark. I haven't heard you read from that yet, so that is very powerful.
That's what it's like.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Laura.
Yeah. Monica, hi. So our next reader and last reader, which is so sad, because I am like, this was the highlight of my entire week, getting to hear you all read poetry. Like, I could do this for 3 more hours, but I will not make people sit here for that long. But I could, and I just feel so grateful to have you 3 here in this time. So yes, so our next reader is MONICA SOK. who is also in the Bay Area right now. She's reading from her debut collection, A Nail the Evening Hangs On. Yeah, thank you, Monica. Perfect. Look at your prop. Monica is a Cambodian American poet and the daughter of former refugees, and has received recognition for her poetry, including a Discovery Prize from the 92nd Street Y. She is currently a 2018-2020 Stegner Fellow at Stanford University. Monica, I'm so excited to hear you read. I will let you go for it.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you so much, Ellen and Mark. I really hope that we can do this in person one day. And thank you, Copper Canyon Press. I really appreciate you, and to all the viewers today. Thank you for being here. I'm going to start with a poem that is about my grandmother, who wove the silk on my cover. The Weaver. She threaded the loom with one strand of her long silver hair, which might have kept growing until she was done, which might have fallen out, but I would come in and sit beside her on the cushion without her noticing, and she would continue. Every day I saw this old woman weaving at her loom, rivers and lakes underneath her hair, the bottom full of silt. I could see it if I reached with a comb, and that was when she'd look at me. Under her hair, she kept her oldest son, who was out for a morning swim, with swallows swooping down to touch the water. It made her happy as she worked on silk dresses, and her hair never ran out. Sometimes, when she was tired, she'd tie it up and let all the tired animals around her house drink from her head. Song of an orphaned soldier clearing landmines. When I saw my father walking, I kicked the road, convinced metal brains at his feet, the humming they heard was a knife cutting, not a living man's voice. They believed me. Like snakes in grass, they clicked their tongues. The gods I met promised me they could make a life happen after what had happened, if I knew who my father was. I clapped my hands to signal a stream, and my father followed my sound. He drank and bathed as I cleared the landmines, and I hoped it was him. He slept in the jungle, dream jaguars circling, though it was nothing but fire burning. Close to the Basak, I climbed mango trees to feed him. Along the way, I waved my arms no. To himself, my father said yes. No, I did not bury the bodies nobody had prayed for. There are things in this world we must make one another see. My father took me gently, each one of us gently. He took us to the flames, humming, my children, my children. 3 provinces, I traveled with him like this, only to take him back to Preg Eng, where he found his sisters. If my father were to tell this, he would tell you, he carried me over his shoulders to a nearby village, that no danger touched him, and that the gods were watching. They wanted to see me live. This poem is called The Death of Henry Kissinger. Bubbles children blow toward the sky, burst bombs into jasmine. Anything that flies on anything that moves. You got that? Got that. Roger that. And a mother's golden lotus bud orbiting her daughter's neck. Perhaps a giant kite to block B-52s. Balloons for my birthday party to bring on your jets. Go ahead. I dare you to send submarines too. To add anything that swims. Your idea of swimming is not dreaming, is not flight. But in Tekeo, at the edge of the forest, if a spot-billed duck were to lay an egg, well, it would be bad for you. Do you copy? Do you read me? Blue speckled egg, rebirth as revenge. It's an order, it's to be done, over and out. The next poem is about my mother. And yeah, my family is far away on the East Coast right now, so I very much miss them. And I just wanted to say really quick too that you can order A Nail the Evening Hangs On at Green Apple Books in San Francisco. So please support your local indie bookstores. This next poem is called The Woman Who Was Small, Not Because the World Expanded. The elephants came out from the fields and carried me toward Chambak, toward a village doused in fires, so that in the pond fish had fried. And looking at that dead water was a woman I had seen running home each evening with a bucket in her hand. Always her speed was the hair that flew in my face. Always her feet sounding of tanks, which made dogs bark and flee, footprints deep as trenches in the grass. This is the woman who has shrunk so small when the planes came, nobody could ever find her. And since more planes, she stayed as small as a spoon, and the world seemed to enlarge, though nothing had changed. And when she saw me, she hid, threw pebbles at my ankles until I bowed down and easily picked her up, folding her inside a banana leaf. She slept well. She who is my mother, sleeping off the world again, whose person I hold in my hand when she wants to be held. And I'll just read one last poem and just say thank you again to everyone. ABC for Refugees. Cherry BD, how does a man who doesn't read English well know that cherry be dumb, those aren't really words, BD, but birds. Cherry be dumb, he stumbles, reading to me by the sliding glass door, cherry BD, through which I watch my brother play in the dum-dum yard. Cherry be dumb, like how my father says, fine then, leave. My mother shouts, stupid, dumb. We live in a small BD nest too, one hallway, to be dumb, slam doors. Birds? What are birds? Thanks to my father reading with me, I have more feathers. THE, first word he ever taught me to pluck. It is a word used all the time. Cherub, beat 'em. The mail, the mailbox, the school bus, the. He asks me to read the mail, not birds, mail. If you don't read this, you will turn into birds. And I read it to him the best I can. The end, a feather, two feathers, the end. Mother, repeat after me. Cherry D, cherry dum. We read together before bedtime. Thank you.
Thanks, Monica. Sorry, I was just reading all these comments. They're very good. Yeah, so I mean, there's just so many like very moving things being said about these poems, about this space, and that's just it's so great to see them. Monica, somebody said, you'd be hard pressed to show me a Monica Sook poem I don't love. Very cool. And they also said, thank you for poems that don't hide or evade. So grateful to be introduced to Monica's work today.
Thank you.
And to all three of you, somebody in the UK said, thank you so much for doing this. I'm in Wales, UK, and there is no way I would be able to see these poets otherwise. So it's very, very cool to know that. So let's see, what time is it? Oh, wow. We really stuck to our time here, everybody. That's so great. I went through, are the three of you up for doing, you can do a thumbs up. Are you up for doing some Q&A or, yeah? Okay, cool. Awesome. Ellen, oh, yeah. Thank you for holding that up. I'm curious, Ellen, somebody had a question for you and they just said, like, thank you so much for your reading at this time. It's something we all needed. What advice do you have for older writers just starting out?
Well, you're welcome. Thanks for your question. I think there are many wonderful things about being a writer, but one of the great things is that you're not ever too old. I'm always glad that I was my trajectory has been a very long one, and I'm so glad, because if it had to be short, like a ballet dancer, it would have not been very good for me. So as someone older, I think the important thing is you have this enormous wealth of life experience, and that in the poetry tribe, age is not such a big factor as it is maybe in the general culture. I know that when I'm with very young poets, very old poets in the middle, it doesn't feel to me like the main thing we're thinking about is how old each of us is. The main thing we're thinking about is what we're excited about reading, what we're excited about learning, because that never ends. And it feels kind of like the most ageless community that I can imagine being in. So I guess my advice would be to stop thinking of yourself as someone who is an older poet. I mean, I'm older, you're older as a person, but as a poet, it's just very much in the moment between you and the page, me and the page, and the words and the language.
Yeah, I think that's great advice, Ellen. I thank you very much for that answer. I have a question for all three of you, and I'm trying to think if I know the answer for all three of you, if we've talked about this. But a lot of people have questions about, and maybe you get this question a lot, but how long does it take to write a poetry book, or to write? I won't say to construct, because that's, I think, different. But so I guess, how long did it take you, each of you, I'll start with you, Monica, to write this specific book? And I guess, how did that, did that feel long? Did that feel short? Did it come quickly? Or however you kind of want to take that question.
Yeah, I took, maybe about, if I look at my table of contents and I try to find the poem that took the longest to write, I don't know, like, I think it was about 6 years. And the last poem I read, ABC for Refugees, it used to be called, it was a different title. It was called Reading at the time. And I began writing that, like, when I started to call myself a poet, when I was living in DC. And that poem, I had the cherubby-dee, cherubby-dum, that repetition, but I didn't really have a form to the poem until maybe like 5 years later. So it took me quite a long time to develop just one poem. And I think it takes a lot of patience. And I guess I'm the kind of writer who wants to take her time. And I don't know, this is my first book, so 6 years, but right now I've written new poems, and so we'll see how long it takes for the next book. But I'd love to hear what Ellen and Mark have to say about that.
Yeah, Mark, do you want to jump in?
Sure. I started working on this book in 2014, shortly after They Don't Kill You Because They're Hungry, They Kill You Because They're Full came out. And as Ellen said, it's based on a longer lifetime of experiences in a very sort of particular way, because a lot of it jumps back to things that happened in the 90s or happened much earlier in my, well, not that much earlier, in my childhood. And so, yeah, so it was about 5.5 years. although there is one image in the book that I've been trying to write for almost 30 years to sort of get right. And I don't know if I did, but it's in there. So yeah.
Sorry, I thought I was unmuted. And your book is, I mean, it's one poem. And so to me, it's interesting to think of it as, I mean, I'm sure it was constructed at many different times, but it's interesting that I don't know, how it came together to be so fully one. It's beautiful.
And at first I had no idea that it was, I didn't sit down and say, here's my project, here's my book length book.
Right.
It sort of, not to sound too mystical about it, but it sort of arrived slowly, but I didn't know what it was for a couple of years, and as I was writing parts of it.
Is that scary to not know what it is when it's happening?
No, it was kind of liberating. I mean, some of the stuff I was, reliving and remembering was unpleasant and scary and traumatic, but, it also felt like a gift, that it was coming from somewhere. And I think for many of us, who don't write every day, that's maybe not our practice, it's not mine. So when it does come, one feels very lucky. So, yeah.
That's fair. Ellen, do you feel like speaking to this?
Sure. Well, there's 6 years between the publication of my previous book and this one. So in some ways, 6 years for me too. But one poem in this book, Failure, I started 12 years ago. I actually went back to see, and every few years I would try to write that poem again. It's about an incident from my childhood, and I'd keep trying to write it and it wouldn't work, and I'd try and write it again, it wouldn't work. But the experience just kept pressing on me. So that's 12. And then the title poem, Indigo, I can't say I was trying to write that exact poem, but I was trying to write about all of that, what's in that poem, for 40 years. So, 40 years of failed poems, but then I got one that worked. So it is a kind of, it's a kind of, what is the word for what we do? It's a kind of thing that we do that takes a certain sort of person who thinks it's worth trying to write a poem for 40 years. And I don't know that makes that much sense, but it's what I want to do.
Wow. Does it feel like when you have that then one poem that you've been trying to write and you feel like you have it this time, does it just feel like there's so much pressure on that one poem then, or does it feel like a relief?
Oh no, it feels like I've we talk about this, but it's really, really true that you write a poem to be changed. That I would not work this hard just to get a good poem. I mean, that's just not worth it. You write it, I write it so that I will be a different person after writing it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we say it to our students and it sounds like words, but it is really the real deal. And that poem changed me, it transformed me. So it was completely worth the 40 years.
Wow. Gosh, that's a poem in and of itself, that answer. Thank you. Really, thank all three of you. Those are beautiful, beautiful answers. I'm wondering, I see a question in here that I'm very interested in, but I don't mean to put any of you on the spot. So if you don't want to answer, please just let me know. But it says, what are there any, or actually, what are some of the non-literary or non-academic things that are feeding your writing process right now? And I think sometimes that's hard to answer because it's kind of like, might be putting you on the spot a bit, but are there any kind of, I guess, shows, kinds of trees, kinds of anything that are inspiring you at the moment? Monica, you might have been nodding. Does it put you on the spot to call you out?
Yeah.
That's fine, then please don't. And maybe nobody has an answer, and that's fine.
I could answer.
Yeah, go for it.
Walking
Yeah.
and
Me too.
insects. My wife is an entomologist, and we spend a fair amount of time looking at insects and looking at really small things. Is a well, it's fascinating, but also it does inspire me, and I like thinking about myself and people as part of the animal world.
I love that. I really love that. I was looking at this, it was raining here a couple of days ago, and I was looking at this worm that was trying to kind of cross my walk, and just the slowness of that process. It was just so calming in a way. And I feel like I never know with technology and things like that how I don't think we're built to process information as quickly as we are expected to these days. And so I think sometimes grounding in just watching these slow movements, it's really, really calming for me. So whether that's an insect or a cloud or something like that, I'm with you on that, on loving that.
I will try to answer that question too.
Okay.
So I think that one of the things that has been inspiring for me right now, while I'm under shelter in place and I live alone, one of the things that I'm tapping into are my dreams, which is where I think like my ancestors talk to me. And I have my own rituals right now too, where I give offerings to ancestors, and that's very present in my poetry. So I think like dreams is like, they're like my way of going outside into places where I can't go right now. So that's where
Wow.
I'm grounding my poems right now.
Do you feel like you're dreaming more
Yeah,
recently?
yeah,
Interesting.
I am. And they're like, I don't know, I feel like I'm a thief in all of them. Like I'm going to museums and stealing like things and opening the safe, and I don't know, I'm just like doing like forbidden things. It's really fun. So but only in my dreams.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been dreaming. I never dream. Like I just never dream. But every night I've been dreaming, and they're the most mundane things. Like I'm eating cereal, and I'm like, is this what I've been missing? Not dreaming, like just like, missing me eating bullshit. It's crazy, but that's really cool to remember your dreams and to also find inspiration from them and offerings in them. That's amazing. Mark, do you feel like attempting to answer this or no?
Sure. Well, for me, both visual art and music have always informed my work a lot. Like my first book, Sky Lounge, instead of a notes page, I had a list of all the bands and musicians that I'd stolen phrases from. And, you know, one of the things that, the way things are now, I go to a lot of live shows, which is very energizing. And there's this wonderful sense of, you know, even if we're all sort of not talking to each other and staring at the stage, there's still this great sense of community, you know, that sort of shared energy and excitement, which, yeah, I'm missing that a lot now. I'm just thinking of all the tickets to shows I've had over the last, you know, month and in the coming months that I'm missing. I was supposed to see Tom York last night, and that didn't happen. But yeah, those are things that I've always that have really informed my work a lot. And like Monica too, I think, you know, I don't always name them as such, but I think where dreams are similar to poems in that you can you can sort of, you have this freedom, you know, you're not you're not necessarily tethered to the real or the truth or the way you usually think, you know, that those two spaces are places where you can think differently and perceive differently, and trying to, you know, and then getting that onto the page is, sometimes it's a different story, but it's you know, it's part of what informs it all. So yeah.
Yeah, that I know. I've been like on Instagram, I feel like a lot of musicians are like doing live shows from their homes or things like that. And I'm so grateful for that, just because I feel like I want to be connected to something just like this, you know, but it is, I hope we get through all of this, you know, safely and with our health, but I also hope it you know, I don't know, I guess I hope we understand how much physical connection is like necessary in our society. Just
I'm gonna
like,
hug so many of you when this
yeah,
is
right? Exactly. I love that. Man, well, we're running out of time. So I guess we have way too many questions to answer, and I am just so grateful that people have written in, and we will save all these questions and look through them definitely, and the poets will see them. So if you've written a question, it will be to your poet. I guess, do we want to end? Are there, I know I just asked you about non-literary things, so, but bringing it back to the literary, are there any poets or poems or any books that you're reading right now that you want to shout out and recommend for people in this time?
Well, I just really want to encourage everybody to buy all of the books on Copper Canyon's spring list, because it's an incredible selection, and you won't be sorry about a single one. I mean, you should definitely buy ours, but you should buy all the others too. And then the other thing you should do is buy them for presents, because there isn't anything that you could buy for someone under $20 that could mean as much to them. They're great for presents, and you can even mail them now because you don't have to go to the post office.
Thanks, Ellen. I love that. I love that.
I have been reading some books that I've just shown, I'm, you know, displaying them right now. Magical Negro by Morgan Parker, Tracing the Horse by Diana Marie Delgado, and I Can't Talk About the Trees Without the Blood by Tiana Clark. And I always have June Jordan next to me, Directed by Desire, which is also a Copper Canyon book. So highly recommend that you read June Jordan during this time. Yeah, thank you.
I love that. Thank you, Monica. Mark, do you have any recs if you would like?
I have one that I'm excited about from Wave Books called The Shore by Chris Nealon. It's not, I think it's on its way, and I'm excited to read that. Yeah, and of course, I was rereading both Ellen's and Monica's books today, and they're as beautiful as, you know, as the samples you heard throughout. So yeah, Copper Canyon, absolutely. I'm like ridiculously proud and lucky to be part of the family.
Gosh, I just feel so lucky that we have your words like in this time, and just, I mean, I just feel so lucky and grateful that you are here and that you are writing, and just that we all get to be around you, even if it's virtually, because I think that it's important. So thank you, all three of you. So I guess I will just say I hope that you stay well and safe out there, all of you. And we're very, very grateful for you. And we will be back next week. What is that? The 9th, April 9th. With a lunchtime reading, launching books by Tracy Brimhall, Leila Shati, and John Freeman. So we hope you join for that. But thank you, everybody, for being here. And yeah, I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thank you, poets. Thank you, participants. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you soon. Bye.
You take care.